Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by Seamus Brady of the Play on GAA podcast to run through this weekend's All-Ireland Club Football and Hurling Championship finals. Seamus, obviously it's been a long year in terms of a club season and, you know, obviously starting all the way back in August, September. And here we are, the two senior finals, the football final, the hurling final, and then obviously straight into county. So, yeah, exciting times.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for having me on again, Aaron. There's a reason they call it the toughest. I mean, how many quality setups, how many quality sides have we seen go into the club championship and they're not here for finals weekend? Winning chance in both Gaelic football and hurling are gone. Kilcoo knocked out by Glen and Ballygunner knocked out by Ballyhale Shamrocks. So there will be new kings this year. Two, very, very exciting games. There are clear favourites in the hurling final, obviously in Ballyhale Shamrocks, but Dunloy being slept on a lot. Their defence has been magnificent throughout the club championship. It was brilliant against Loughneel. That's what helped them get over the line. Really looking forward to both of these games. I think they'll be epics, both of them, particularly the Kilmacud Crokes Glen game. I think that will be an absolute arm wrestle from start to finish between two sides that over the course of the club championship, they both proved, in my opinion, that they are the two best club sides in the Gaelic football scene in 2022 because they came through opposite sides of the draw. And I think both of them, I think Crokes would have beaten Moycullen in the semi-final. And I also think Glen would have beaten Cairns or Rattleys in the other semi-final. So I think overall, these two sides were the best. It's going to be interesting to see which one of them is the best.
100%. Yeah, Teske says TJ Reid is the best hurler. He is my favourite. We'll certainly run through the hurling final in great detail and discuss even the plan that Dunloy maybe will need to come up with to try and stop the likes of TJ Reid and Owen Cody. But focusing first of all on the football final, as you said, like between Kilmacud Crokes and Glen, like for myself personally, it's the game I'm most interested in, maybe because of the fact that Ballyhale Shamrocks are significant favourites against Dunloy. But as you said, like I remember back in September, August, where when I was speaking to people in podcasts and even in some of my own videos as well, there was a clear consensus that Kilmacud Crokes were the best club team in Dublin, the best club team in Leinster. Glen, provided they could get over Kilcoo, which a lot of people predicted were the best club team in Ulster. And there was a clear pathway there for both of them to reach an All-Ireland final. Like it rarely actually happens where on paper the two best club teams in the country meet in an All-Ireland club final, but this time around in 2023 that is the case, so makes it even more exciting.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think one of the key things that is being slept on is Glen, their run to the final. In my opinion, they've taken out more big teams than Kilmacud Crokes have. I mean, let's look at the route here. So Crokes get to the final. They beat Nafina in a real arm wrestle of a game. Nafina definitely had their chances to win that one. Then they get out. They beat, I think it was the Downs. They beat in the Leinster final. Before that, they beat Portarlington in the semi-final. They beat Naas in the Leinster quarter-final. If you go up to Ulster, Glen, they beat Loughneel in the final, who have been a serious team in Derry. And before Glen broke through last year, Loughneel were absolute kingpins there in Derry and untouchable. So to beat Loughneel again was massive, and they beat them even more comfortably this time than they did last time. Then to beat Errigal Kieran, champions of Tyrone, who have the Canavan brothers, who have Peter Hart, they're a serious outfit. To beat a very, very determined Aaron's own Cargan, of course, who had just beaten, I think it was the Donegal champions, Naomh Cunnell. To beat them, they were really, really dogged and determined that day. And then to, beat Kilcoo, the defending All-Ireland champions, the defending Ulster champions, who had beaten Kilmacud Crokes in last year's final, and then to beat Moy Cullen, who a lot of people had tipped as an outside shot for the All-Ireland. And when you watch what Moy Cullen did to Westport in the Connacht quarter-final, they really flexed their attacking muscle in that game. They put up, I think it was 318 or something on Westport. I mean, unbelievable scoreline. So I think going into this game, it's going to be really, really hard for Crokes to... It's going to be hard for people to sleep on the level of competition that Waddy Graham's Glen have come through. Because even Crokes in the semi-final, they beat Cairns O'Rattleys. Fair enough, Cairns O'Rattleys went up and they gave it a rattle and they gave them a good go. But Cairns O'Rattleys had been beaten 3 times in Kerry. And it is something that a lot of people are forgetting. In my opinion, I don't even see them as the best team in Kerry. I think Dingle were the best team in Kerry this year. So the fact that Crokes got Cairns in the semi-final, obviously they can only beat what's put in front of them. But I think Waddy Graham's Glen, their route to the final, has been more dangerous and they've taken out bigger teams than Kilmacud Crokes have, just in my opinion.
Yeah, like, and even looking at Waddy Graham's Glen route to the final, like you said previously, like they obviously came through Errigal Kieran 310 to 112. I remember they were trailing, I think, at half time as well. Obviously, you think of the talent in that Errigal Kieran side with the likes of Peter Hart and obviously young Rory Canavan, who's broke through. They came through a stern test in the semi-finals in Aaron's own Cargan of Antrim, 110 to 1-8. And they then beat the reigning All-Ireland champions pretty convincingly in the end when you look at the scoreline, 112 to 1-6. They obviously got a late goal to sort of make that scoreline maybe a little bit more comfortable. And then in the semi-finals, as you said, they narrowly came through Moy Cullen by a scoreline of 111 to 12 points. So, like, obviously having that tough run through as opposed to Kilmacud Crokes, like running through their route to the final in the Leinster Club Senior Football Championship, it obviously was a lot more convincing from a Kilmacud Crokes point of view. If I can get it up here in front of me, I can. Yeah, they beat Naas 314 to 14 points. They then obviously beat Port Arlington in the semi-finals, 112 to 4 points. They beat the Downs 112 to 8 points. And then obviously in the semi-finals, a 114 to 14-point win over Cairns O'Rattleys. So, as you said, like those significant tests from a Waddy Graham's Glen point of view, like that's going to stand to them.
Without doubt, because what I think we can both agree on is since the Dublin final against Na Fianna, I don't think Crokes have really been tested. Like in any of their games, I don't think they've ever looked like losing. Like against Na Fianna, they looked like they were going to lose at one point, and they managed to pull it out of the fire. Since then, they've developed a pattern of how they win games. And right up until the last few minutes against Cairns O'Rattleys, that pattern was continuing. The pattern was very similar against Port Darlington and the Downs, especially in how they won both of those games. It was hit them early. They got an early goal. They got 5 or 6 points ahead very early on, and they just cruised from there. Kilmacud Crokes' defence is unbelievable. They have completely shut down pretty much every team that they played against. The last time they conceded a goal, to my knowledge, I don't know if Naas got one. Did Naas get one?
No.
Then the last time that they got a goal conceded was Thomas Davis in the Dublin semi-final. Like, that's a remarkable record when you think they're going up against champions of counties. Like, they're going up against teams and they've kept clean sheets in all those games. So their defense is a massive part of how they're winning these games. They hit teams early, they get 6 or 7 points ahead, and they cruise it for the rest of the game. And during that early burst, their defense keeps the other attack scoreless from play. They did it to the Downs and they did it to Port Darlington. The first 20 minutes of the game, both of those games, neither of those sides scored. And these are forward lines. You know, if you look at the Downs, these are forward lines that includes Luke Loughlin, Jonathan Lynham. Then for Port Darlington, they have Colin Murphy, Jake Foster, and they just could not get a shot at the post, basically, against this Kilmacud Crokes defence. What happens is that defence shuts down the opposition's attack. Shane Walsh, Shane Cunningham, Darren Mullen, they get an early goal, a few points ahead, and once Crokes get 6 or 7 points ahead, they never, ever, ever let you back into the game. That's why it was very, very confusing watching the Cairns game in the semi-final, that all of a sudden Kilmacud Crokes looked a bit rattled. I hadn't seen them like that in such a long time. And if you go on the flip side, you're right there. Waddy Graham's Glen have won games in very different ways. You know, they gritted it out against Aaron's own Cargan when, in my opinion, they did not play anywhere near the level that they're capable of. They swept Slough aside, outscored them. Then they really won a battle against Errol Kieran. And then they put up a brilliant performance, a narrow one against Moy Cullen. They've won games in different ways. And that could be a real advantage to them going into this final. Because Crokes, you could argue, maybe have got into a comfort zone where they kind of expect teams to fall when they ambush them first. And Waddy Graham's Glen won't do that. Waddy Graham's Glen, it's not going to work on them. This early burst of hitting 1-4, 1-5 in the first 20 minutes and then the other team folds. It's not going to happen against Waddy Graham's Glen. It's going to be an arm wrestle from minute 1 to minute 60. And what we've established here is Waddy Graham's Glen are way more used to winning those narrow games than Kilmacud Crokes are in this championship right now. So that could be something that could be playing massively in their favour.
Yeah, Rory says, how's it going, lads? All good, Rory. Hope all is well with yourself. Porrick says, Kilmacud Crokes to score up to a total of 16. Glen will not get near it. Shane Walsh nearly completing football. All Ireland senior club football medal is very prestigious. Rory O'Carroll, greatness. Yeah, and you made an interesting point there as well, even when you were saying about that late surge by Cairns O'Rahilly's. Like, for Kilmacud Crokes in particular, as we know, in the All-Ireland Club final last year, they were probably scarred in more ways than one by conceding that late Jerome Johnston goal that eventually won the All-Ireland for Kilkeel. I mean, Kilmacud Crokes were dominant for large parts in that game, led for large parts in that game, but conceded a dramatic late goal to eventually lose the title. And then, as you said, against Cairns O'Rahilly's going into the closing couple of minutes, they sort of allowed Cairns O'Rahilly's to come back out of nowhere, really. Like, I was at the game and atmosphere was flat. You just didn't feel like Cairns O'Rahilly's were going to come back into it. I think there were 7 points down, brought it back down to 3 points, and with a bit more luck, they could have sent that game to extra time. So, like, clearly from a Crokes point of view, like, they haven't been in too many situations where they've had to close out narrow leads in the final couple of moments because they've cruised through Leinster. Fair enough, in the Dublin final, that was a close game that they did have to close out, and they just about did so there as well. So that is going to be something of note for Waddy Graham's Glen, that even if you're 2-3 points behind Kilmacud Crokes going into the final few minutes, there are maybe a bit of nerves and vulnerabilities within Kilmacud, especially in closing out these narrow margins.
Yeah, no doubt, because I think if you look at Kilcoo getting that last-minute goal last year, and obviously you brought up the Dublin final, but I think it was Nafina missing those chances. Nafina missed a few chances, like gilt-edged chances to put the ball over the bar that they missed, and some of those misses will haunt those lads. Like, they really should have put Crokes away when they had the opportunity to. Crokes hung in there, got the job done, and Shane Walsh led the way for them. 100%. He kicked crucial points at crucial stages. Since then, they've been untested. And then once Cairns O'Rahilly started pulling them back in, all of a sudden, Conor Ferris was going along with his kick out straight on top of David Moran with a load of them. They were making mistakes. And all of a sudden, a team that looked so professional in every game that they've played was all of a sudden looking dodgy. And I think if it gets down to the last few minutes and Waddy Graham's Glen are within 2 points of Kilmacud Crokes, which I think they will be, I think this one is going right down to the wire. I think it's going to be decided in the last 10 minutes. I think if Crokes are ahead by 2 or 3 points, I actually think they're more vulnerable than if they're level. Because with a mindset that Crokes have, I can see them kind of going, okay, we were here last year, like, let's drop back and let's defend this. Whereas I think if they're level, I think Crokes are more inclined to push on and get the ball to Shane Walsh, get the ball to Paul Mannion if he comes on, which he will. They're more likely to try and get the ball to these lads and kick winning points rather than hang on to what they have. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see if Crokes end up 2 points ahead, 3 points ahead with 5 minutes left to play. I'd actually give Waddy Graham's Glen more of a chance of beating them than if they're level with 5 minutes to play. Because I think Kilmacud Crokes have more clutch players than Waddy Graham's Glen have. I think Shane Walsh and Paul Mannion are two of the best point scorers in the game right now, along with David Clifford. I'd put them as top 3 in terms of players that can boom over a point from pretty much anywhere. Obviously, Paddy McBurty, Rian O'Neill, they all deserve shouts. But to have Shane Walsh and Paul Mannion in your team, who are Shane Walsh on the right foot, Mannion on the left foot, they can kick it over from anywhere. I think going into the last 5 minutes, if the teams were level and both sides needed a winner, I think Crokes would be more likely to pull it out of the fire like that. But I think if Crokes are already 2 points ahead, I think they're more inclined to drop into their shell, try and protect what they have. And that's where Waddy Graham's Glen could get a goal. Throwing Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley into the full forward line there could be deja vu.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and maybe just running through some individual battles as well. Like, first of all, maybe looking at midfield. I mean, the idea of Conor Glass, Craig Diaz in midfield. You've got Ben Shovlin of Kilmacud Crokes maybe up against Emmett Bradley. I mean, you're talking about absolute rags to the riches of the riches really in midfield there in terms of both sides that are playing, in terms of quality midfielders. So I mean, that's going to be very, very interesting to watch.
No doubt. And it's one of the parts that Waddy Graham's Glen, no doubt, in my opinion, have the upper hand. I think Craig Diaz is an outstanding player. I think Ben Shovlin is an outstanding player. But I think Waddy Graham's Glen have the best midfield partnership in the club championship, period. They're better than any midfield club pairing across the country. And I would challenge anyone watching this to think of a better pairing in midfield. I mean, you could say maybe Brian Hayes and Ian Maguire of St. Finbarrs, but in my opinion, like Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley is the best Derry midfield pairing, never mind, Waddy Graham's Glen. So the fact that they have both of them are unbelievable fielders of the ball. Both of them are hard runners, powerful leaders, and both of them have kicked crucial points at crucial times in Waddy Graham's Glen's run to this final. They've both stood up and led the way when they really needed leaders. And I think it's an area that Crokes are going to have to avoid. I think Conor Ferris made mistakes a lot in the semi-final with his kickouts by going on David Moore, and a lot of times he cannot do the same thing in this final here. He has to keep that ball away from Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley. I can see a lot of kickouts going to the wing forwards and wing backs. I can see him going short with a lot of kickouts. Keep the ball away from Conor Glass because you will not win those kickouts. Glass is not only Derry's best midfielder, I would put him in the pairing of the two best midfielders in the country with Brian Fenton. That would be my Ireland midfield. They have to keep the ball away from him because he's, in my opinion, the best number 8 in the country. And right now, for sure, the form that he's in, he's transformed Derry, he's transformed Glen. And yeah, I'd give Glen the upper hand there in midfield. Craig Diaz and Ben Shovlin, two magnificent midfielders, but I just think Glen have the upper hand here, and Crokes have to think of a different strategy for the kickouts, and then they have to think of a strategy to curtail the influence of Glass and Bradley. Because if you watch Glen's run to the final, as I've mentioned, both of them have scored crucial points at crucial times and been clutch players for Glen. So Crokes have to have a plan for them. Diaz and Shovlin need to play the game of their lives, which, they are two outstanding players. Maybe they can curtail the influence, but it's going to be one hell of a challenge.
Yeah, and as you said there, with Conor Ferris's kickouts against Cairns O'Rahilly's, like David Moran was phenomenal that day, like in terms of catching a lot of high ball and playing that sort of direct ball into the half forward line or full forward line. But like, interesting enough, when I seen Cairns O'Rahilly's press up on Kilmacud Crokes sort of towards the end of the second half, I felt like they were getting a lot of joy. And if Glen could do something like that against Kilmacud Crokes, with the fact that if Ferris is forced to go long and he's got Conor Glass, Emmett Bradley, even going as far back to players like Michael Warnock in the half-back line, like they're tremendous fielders of a ball. So like that could be a serious area for Glen to get at this Crokes side. And look, I'm sure Robbie Brennan and the Kilmacud Crokes management have looked at this, but like, I think from a Glen point of view, they shouldn't sit back and try and be defensive. Like, they should try and be the aggressors, because I feel like a lot of teams against Crokes this year have sat back and allowed them to play football rather than actually getting at them.
I completely agree because not only that, but Crokes expect Waddy Graham's Glen to sit back, because it's what Waddy Graham's Glen have done throughout the club championship. And I've said that the way that both of these sides play is actually very similar. If you look at the semi-final against Moycullen, Glen hit them early and went 4 points to nil up in the first 10 minutes, and then more or less built a control base from there for the rest of the game. Both sides are set up with very, very strong defences, two powerful midfielders that tend to dominate every game that they play, and then a couple of clutch forwards that get the points when they need them. But I fully believe that Waddy Graham's Glen, particularly in the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, should push right up on Kilmacud Crokes' kickouts. Right up. Michael Warnock should push right up into the gap between Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley. And then Glass take one side and Emmett Bradley take the other and force Conor Ferris to go right down on top of one of those three. And I think Glen could win a lot of ball there. And if they manage to not only prevent Kilmacud Crokes getting their early burst, but actually flip it the other way and go 3 or 4 points up themselves, then they could sit back into their defensive position. And then they could, build a base from there that they did build against Moycullen. And Crokes, I mean, that would be one hell of a predicament to be in from there.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Crokes perspective, I mean, maybe looking more so at some of their strengths. I mean, defensively, as we've said, they've been hugely solid. Obviously, you've only conceded 1 goal since the All-Ireland Club Football Championship or since the Dublin Club Championship semi-finals. Like, when you look at the likes of Dan O'Brien, Theo Clancy, Michael Mullen, obviously Conor Ferris in goal, Rory O'Carroll, who's been superb, whether he's playing a fullback or the half-back line. Like, that'll be tough for Glen because although they do have a tremendous midfield, like, Danny Talon's look good for Glen in terms of forward-wise, but like, as Porrick was alluding to earlier, like, getting scores is going to be tough for them in terms of when they're trying to play it through Crokes, who are already sort of settled defensively and not necessarily from a opposing kick-out. So, like, that's going to be tough from a Glen perspective.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they have the Dohertys who have, gotten big scores for them. And then Danny Talon is another one that they turn to in these moments. But if you actually look at the semi-final, like, you could argue on paper that, Cairns Ratley's, that their forward line actually on paper is right up there with Waddy Graham's Glen. Like, they've got Gavin O'Brien, they've got Jack Savage, they've got Tommy Walsh, Barry John Keane. And still, for long periods of that game, they were held scoreless from play against this Kilmacud Crokes defence. And it's one of those things, but like, would Luke Loughlin start for this Glen side? Yes. Would Colin Murphy? Yes. Would Jake Foster? Yes. And all those forwards were held silent against this Crokes defence. So it would be very interesting to see how would Danny Talon get on against them? How would the Dohertys get on against them? Would they be able to put up the scores that they put up in previous games? Because when I'm watching the game, the 3 lads that I've seen hit big scores at big times off the top of my head for Glen have been Conor Glass, Emmett Bradley, and then Stevie O'Hara off the bench. He hit 2 brilliant points against Eric O'Kieran when they really needed someone. He came off the bench, hit 2 brilliant points. But I do completely agree with you. I think the forward line is where Crokes just completely outmatch Waddy Graham's Glen. I think when you look at it, Shane Walsh, Paul Mannion, Darren Mullen, Shane Horan, Shane Cunningham, Tom Fox, Hugh Kenny got 1-2 in the semi-final there. Like, their forward line is awesome. It's as good a forward line as I think there is in the club championship. It's just the way they work together. And then on top of that, they've got 2 of the best forwards in the country in Mannion and Walsh just to top it all off. The way they move, the way that they play together, the crucial scores that they get at crucial times. And I think, I would be definitely leaning more towards Crokes in terms of the firepower that they have going forward. I'd also be leaning more towards Crokes in terms of who has a stronger defence. It's just the midfield where I would give Glen a big advantage. But then I would give Crokes a big advantage in terms of the forwards. Defence is pretty even, but I'd still probably go for Crokes. But they're very evenly matched.
Yeah, and obviously Shane Walsh has been the man on everyone's lips when it's come to Kilmacud Crokes. Like, he came to Kilmacud Crokes for one reason, really, and that was to win this All-Ireland. I mean, he obviously when it was being known that he was moving to Dublin and he was available to play in the Dublin Club Championship, Crokes were the team he came to because he knew that this was probably his best chance at winning an All-Ireland, because realistically, it is the best club team in Dublin before Shane Walsh came to Kilmacud Crokes. And I think after obviously winning it again, there's no doubt about it. But like, what kind of game do you expect him maybe to have? I mean, he scored 9 points, obviously in the Leinster final. He scored 9 points in the All Ireland final for Galway against Kerry. Could he score 9 points again in the in this final?
No, he won't get 9, but he will definitely score. And I think the way that the transfer was so controversial and the way that there was so much talk around him, it's nature that he is going to be a pretty big influence on this game. Like, I mean, what better way to top off a transfer and top off all the controversy than to be a huge part of the reason why Kilmacud Crokes won the All-Ireland Club Championship in the year that you transferred. I mean, that would be a perfect end, in his view, to this mad story of his transfer and the controversy that it caused. And I can see him doing it. I really can. Like, I know we're going to get on to predictions, but like, I just think once it comes to that clutch period, I think Shane Walsh is as good as it gets. And I think Mannion, on the other hand, as a partner in crime, doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, like, and who do you think could maybe even pick him up? Like, there was a comment here from Test Case who says, I was listening to Conor Carville, the Glen captain. He could pick Shane Walsh. I mean, maybe even Cathal Mulholland might pick him up. You've obviously got Michael Warnock maybe potentially as well, depending on where Walsh plays, if maybe Mannion does start, which we'll get onto. But yeah, like that's going to be the big headache, I suppose, for Malachy O'Rourke. I mean, who picks up Shane Walsh?
I was thinking Cathal Mulholland, like, I have to say. He's been one that stood out to me throughout the club championship. I think they'll leave Michael Warnock at centre-back. I think they'll leave him as sweeping the way that he has. I think he came in there. He was man of the match against Ergo Kieran. He's been brilliant throughout the club championship. I can definitely see Mulholland going on to Shane Walsh. But then when Mannion comes off the bench, which he will, even if he doesn't start, I don't know who they're going to put on him. Like, I really don't, because, I mean, at that stage, if Mannion comes on with 40 minutes gone, 45 minutes gone, I mean, what player who's had 40 minutes, 45 minutes marking a Hugh Kenny or a Darren Mullen is thinking, oh, great, here comes Paul Mannion. Like, I'm going to love, one of the fastest, strongest players in the game. Yeah, I'm ready for this. Like, that's a real tricky one. I think that if I'm being completely honest, I think they need a substitute there. Ready to pick up Paul Mannion. I think they need that the minute Paul Mannion gets substituted on, I think they need to whip off the left corner back or something and throw in someone who's fresh and ready for Paul Mannion, because I think Mannion coming on to a player who's already a bit fatigued, and a bit tired, I think that could be a death sentence for this Wiley Glen defence. I think they're going to need to have someone waiting in the wings, ready to come on the second a Mannion comes on. I know it's a bit of a outside of the box tactic, but I think they need to do it because Mannion is that good.
Yeah, like, and it's almost a game of cat and mouse in many ways, because if Malachy O'Rourke was to think of that and have that in his plan, and then Robbie Brennan calls his bluff and doesn't bring Mannion on, then all of a sudden, like, if you're leaving a good defender on the bench, like, it is going to make for huge interest to see sort of what happens there. But in terms of Mannion himself, like, he was on the bench versus Cairns O'Rahilly's. He didn't come on, but he was involved in all the warm-ups and looked, fairly involved. So you'd imagine, with it being an All-Ireland final, he's surely going to play some part. I've seen some people online and everything else saying he should start. But what do you think? Do you think you leave him on the bench as an impact sub? Do you start him and risk it, or what do you think?
I think he comes on with 20 minutes to go. That's my prediction. I think that Crokes go with the lineup that they've gone with in the rest of this All-Ireland Club Championship since Mannion's injury. And I think they bring him on with 20 minutes to go and the game is in the melting pot. And I could see a fairy tale ending for Mannion with him and Walsh kicking winners. I really could. I think that's how they're going to use him. But it'll be interesting. Maybe Brennan might have a different plan for him. Because if he's injured, like, say he is just way off, say he tweaked it again or something, then you could be right. Having him on the bench could have Wally Glen thinking, like, oh, we have to have someone ready to mark Paul Mannion, even if he's like cruciate ligament is gone, like that type of thing, that they could have someone waiting for him to come on. Then Mannion at the end of the game just pulls out of the substitutes bench with a big boot on his leg, and he was never going to go on anyway. Like, it could be one of those things that we don't know exactly how fit he is. But I think, especially considering that he missed last year's final and they lost in such an agonising fashion, and I to this day believe that if Mannion was playing that game, Crokes would have won. I think he would play this game if he had one leg. I think he's not going to miss another All-Ireland club football final. They didn't make it in 2018. We all know what happened. Mullinach to beat them. The fact that he had to miss last year's one must have, been heartbreaking for him. The fact that they're back in this game, you don't know if you're ever going to get back here. I mean, look how many great club teams there's been that have fallen off a cliff in the next 2 years. Like Crokes could fall off a cliff over the next 2 years, 3 years. Like St. Vincent's were the absolute dominating team, not only in Dublin but in Leinster, and then they were always contenders for the All-Ireland. And then last year they got relegated to Senior B in Dublin. And I know they've got promoted, but it just shows how quickly things can change. It shows how quickly, like Austin Stacks there, winning in Kerry last year, relegated this year. Like how quickly things can change for club sides. So the fact that Crokes are back in the final, and Mannion does know he's not guaranteed that they'll ever make it back here again. So I think if there's any chance that Paul Mannion can put a bit of freeze spray on his leg, get an injection, make sure he's able to play, he will play. And I guarantee he will play some part in this game. My prediction is he's going to come on with 20 minutes to go and give Crokes a turbo boost potentially towards that All-Ireland title.
Yeah, like because even in either circumstance, I think it's perfect to bring him on, because if they're chasing the game, let's say, perfect man to bring on. Like if Glen are sitting in deep, like he's the man you want on. You couldn't think of any better player to bring on. He'll kick from distance, he'll kick the freeze. If Walsh isn't on them, let's say, and he's obviously been there and done it for Dublin time and time again in big games. Even when he came off the bench in the 2020 All-Ireland final against Mayo for Dublin, he actually made a bit of an impact and I think kicked 1 or 2 points. So you could see something sort of similar happening there. And then obviously on the reverse side of it, if Crokes are leading by, let's say, 3-4 points, like no better man to run into the open space if Glen are chasing the game. So it's the perfect trump card really for Crokes to have someone like him on the bench.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if you're talking a pure athlete, I mean, this guy is one of the best athletes we've seen in the game. Like, he's so fast, he's so strong. That left foot, like, he can kick the ball over from pretty much any distance away. Like, some of my favourite moments in Gaelic football I've seen, particularly in 2019, when Mannion would just come off the shoulder and just swing the ball over from underneath the Cusack stand or underneath the Hogan stand, just so easily, like from huge distances out. And I think, yeah, you're right. Absolute perfect trump card, because no matter the situation, Paul Mannion makes every team he plays on better. And yeah, he's an amazing player for Crokes to have in the Arsenal going into this game.
Yeah, and even you look at some of the unsung heroes as well on this Kilmacud Crokes side, like we said before, the likes of Tom Fox, obviously Shane Cunningham, Shane Horan, Cian O'Connor even coming off the bench, Hugh Kenny, Darragh Mullen. Like they just have like so many workhorse forwards in their side that like Walsh and Mannion might be the flashy forwards, but you've got the likes of Darragh Mullen who's able to do the dirty work, like track back when needs be. You've obviously got Tom Fox as well. Shane Cunningham, I think, has been really underrated. Like he was fantastic against Cairns O'Reilly's, brilliant in the county final as well. So I mean, they have a lot of unsung heroes in this side that probably don't get the credit, and it wouldn't surprise me again if it's one of them we're talking about come the final whistle.
Yeah, no doubt, because like Shane Walsh was taken out in the semi-final against Cairns. He only got 1 point from play, and it was Hugh Kenny that stood up at 1-2. I mean, Darragh Mullen got them off to a great start against Naas with that cheeky goal. And basically every player that you mentioned there, and I know it's a cliche thing to say, but a lot of those players that you mentioned there would start for, I think, any county below Division 1. I think any of them would start for any team below, say, the top 4 in Division 2 and Division 1. I think Cian O'Connor, Darragh Mullen, Hugh Kenny, they'd all, like Shane Horan does play for Offaly. Like, there you go. Like, it's one of the things of like, all those guys are such good footballers, but Dublin is so competitive that, they haven't really got a fair crack at the whip. Darragh Mullen would definitely be the first one that I'd be looking at for next year. Definitely give this guy some game time in the league for sure anyway. But Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all because Keane O'Connor was the one that got the crucial goal. I think that was last year, but he got a crucial goal. I think it was against
Got
Port Arlington.
few late goals, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that saw them over the line in that one. So they've done it before, and Hugh Kenny was definitely the reason why they got through the Cairns O'Reilly's game in the end. So yeah, wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the unsung heroes that pulls through again.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of a prediction, then I mean we've a few coming in here. Porrick says Kilmacud Crokes 115, Glen 13 points, and Test Case says I think the score will be 116 Kilmacud Crokes, Glen 15 points. What's your prediction?
I'm gonna spell out a long prediction for you. I think that these two sides are, as I mentioned, very evenly matched. I think both of these sides are they've played their games in a very, very similar way up until now in the championship. Very solid defense, very, very good midfield pairing that dominates pretty much every game that they play. They get the ball into their forwards, their 2 or 3 main forwards that do the rest. I think both of them are going to cancel each other out in the first 15 minutes. Both teams have hit the other team early and hard in the first 15 minutes that they've played in pretty much every game since their club final. I think that it will be an arm wrestle of a game right up until the last 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And then Kilmacud Crokes will spring Paul Mannion off the bench. And I think in the last 5 minutes, when they're level, when there's 1 point in it, 2 points in it, I think Crokes have more clutch players than what Glen have. And when Crokes get the ball to Shane Walsh, get the ball to Paul Mannion, and they can shoot crucial points at crucial stages, I just think Crokes will get over the line in those crucial moments. Final prediction, I'm going to say Crokes 1 goal and 11 points. Glen 12 points.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that as well. I think it will be low scoring. I think it will be cagey. To be honest, I actually don't think it mightn't be the best game. To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me after 20, 25 minutes if everyone's tweeting and giving out about how bad of a quality of an All-Ireland final it is. But I just think it will be very cagey, and like both teams don't concede much, don't concede a lot of goals. So like I think my prediction that I'm thinking of going with is 13 points to 11 for Kilmacud Crokes. So, and it's similar again, 2 point win. I think Crokes will just narrowly get over the line by the smallest of margins. But again, like even a 2 point lead, like if Glen can just get that 1 goal chance, like I mean, you wouldn't put it past them, like.
No chance, because this is what happened to Crokes last year. Like Kilcoo did it, and Glen beat Kilcoo this year. So, I mean, if Kilcoo can do it, Glen can do it.
Yeah, Rory says here, Ballymun Kickums could be the closest challengers to Crokes, considering they won the Dublin Club Championship in 2020. I think Ballymun just need to focus on getting out of the Dublin group stages first of all before they can focus on Kilmacud.
They did beat Crokes on their way to winning that one though, but it's 3 years ago now, nearly.
Like they've a serious team. In fairness, it's just one of them things where I don't know.
I think their peak is past them at this stage. I think like you've got the James McCarthy, Dean Rock. They're all heading towards mid-30s. I think 2020 might have been their last with that crop. I'm sorry to say they're an amazing team, but
yeah,
I think like Crokes are only getting stronger, and Nafina as well are only getting stronger. I'd be surprised if they pull off another one.
Yeah, and it's a shame really, because I think they would have won the All-Ireland that year as well had there been an All-Ireland Club Football Championship. But moving on anyways to the All-Ireland Club Hurling final, which is also taking place. Ballyhale Shamrocks of Kilkenny going up against Dunloy of Antrim. I suppose an interesting final, not one that much of us predicted. Obviously, I was saying there in terms of the fact that a lot of people at the start of the year predicted Kilmacud Crokes versus Glen as the final. Nobody really predicted this, and I think not so much in terms of Ballyhale. I think everyone recognises that they are one of the greatest club hurling teams of all time, and could potentially maybe go down as the greatest club team of all time, in my opinion, if they actually go and win this All-Ireland, possibly even putting them ahead of the likes of Corofin and football, and even Crossmaglen. But yeah, Dunloy, I mean, what a story for them, beating St. Thomas in the semi-finals. Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, You see, it was a weird one going into that one because Thomas's had just beaten Loughrea in the Galway Hurling final replay, and both of those Galway finals had been fantastic games. But there was something about the semi-final that wasn't really that surprising that they managed to beat St. Thomas's. Am I wrong in saying that? Like, were you shocked when they beat St. Thomas's?
I was a little. I was surprised. I was definitely surprised given the fact that St. Thomas they've been here before. Like I think there was one year they lost to Slot Neil. You know, they came through. Like it was weird because I was keeping an eye on them in Galway. They drew at Loughrea in the Galway final, and then obviously won the replay. They'd actually lost in the group stages in the Galway Club Hurling Championship. So you could see there was vulnerabilities there, but at the same time, I was just like, surely after what's happened to them in the past with Slot Neil, with the opportunity that's presented itself to get to an All-Ireland final, like let's not forget they were minutes away from beating Ballyhale last year. I just thought like that grit determination was there, given the fact that they found a way to come through Galway, you know, considering how tough it was for them. But yeah, we certainly didn't expect that in the end, and we certainly didn't expect Dunloy to produce the shock and turn them over. But what did you think? Were you surprised that Dunloy pulled off the win?
Same as yourself, a little bit. But then when you look back, you're like, Dunloy's defence, as I mentioned at the start, Dunloy's defence has been exceptional throughout the entire championship. They learned from their mistake last year. Like they lost to Slough-Neil in that Ulster final in 2021. I think it was the semi-final, and then Slough-Neil beat Ballycran in the final. But I think it was like this year, there's been no doubt for the last couple of years that Dunloy and Slough-Neil have been the big two up in Ulster. But they learned from their loss in 2021. They came back and they beat Slough-Neil, got over that line. And when you look at last year's semi-final, Slough-Neil took Ballygunner right to the pin of their collar in the All-Ireland semi-final, and Ballygunner went on to win it. So I was saying, look, Slough-Neil are no joke, and they're a serious side. And the fact that they were knocked out of the football meant that they were focusing all their attention on the hurling. And the likes of Shane McGuigan, the likes of Christy McKeag, the likes of Brendan Rodgers were all focused solely on the hurling during that period. And the fact that Dunloy turned them over, I was saying that this is obviously a very good side. They've got the likes of Keelan Malloy, Conal O'Cunning, like superb hurlers with Antrim and Dunloy. And the fact that they got St. Thomas's, who would, as you mentioned, been shown to be vulnerable in the Galway Championship and had really had to work to win that 5th Galway title in a row, which obviously massive credit for that achievement. But there was something for me that I was saying, I just don't think they're as strong as they were last year. There's something that the fact that they were beaten in the group stage, they should have been beaten in the first final, in my opinion, by Loughrea. I was saying, there's something off about them this year compared to where they were last year. And Dunloy were on such a high because they had got over a team that had beaten them, the year previous, and they were coming with this extra momentum. And you look at, St. Thomas is very reliant on Conor Cooney and very reliant on Aina Burke. And I was saying, I think Dunloy could do it. I was still going for St. Thomas's to win just because based off of their experience at this stage. But the fact that Dunloy beat them surprised me, yes, but wasn't my opinion. It wasn't like, wow, what a result. Like I was kind of like, oh, okay. And Dunloy got the win there. Probably would have thought Thomas's would have won it, but not exactly stunned.
Yeah, like and as you said there, like when you look through some of the players that are in this Dunloy side, the likes of Keelan Malloy, the likes of Conal Cunning, Nigel Elliott as well, like they've got a good spine of Antrim hurlers within their team. And when you think about it, when you look at the rise of Antrim hurling in the last couple of years, some of the shocks they've pulled off, some of the performances they've pulled off, obviously 2 John McDonough Cups in the last 3 years. Like the Antrim are a very good hurling side, and they certainly are on the up. So maybe it shouldn't have been that big of a surprise considering some of the players that they had in their side.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think for Antrim as well, they would look at it as, when they get to the Division 1 level in hurling, and when they get to the All-Ireland Championship level in hurling, they were always kind of the same as Laois, the same as Westmeath, the same as Carlow before them, of being a team that was like, look, they're up, but they're going to go back down over the next year, 2 years. They're not really that much of a threat to the established teams in the All-Ireland Championship. And they absolutely showed that they were to be taken seriously when they beat Clare right out of the gate, when they drew at Wexford, when they were putting it up to every single team in the Division 1 league campaign that year. They were outstanding in the league, and they really, really grit their teeth and made every team work for in every game against them. The club championship is different. The club championship will be one of those where, it's parish going up against parish, it's club going up against club. And the fact that they won Ulster, and then now that they've beaten St. Thomas's, they're going up against Ballyhale Shamrocks, who many people, as you mentioned there, consider to be one of the greatest club sides of all time. They've got TJ Reid, Adrian Mullen, Owen Cody. Like, if they put it up to Ballyhale Shamrocks, if they beat Ballyhale Shamrocks, that will get them all the recognition they need and will give Antrim a massive boost at inter-county level as well.
Yeah, like could it be the greatest club shock of all time, do you think, if Dunloy pull off the victory?
I think we'll be right up there. I really think they are such underdogs in this game, because Ballyhale Shamrocks have just a ridiculous array of talents. Like, you look at their defence, even the half back line. I mean, Darragh Corcoran, Richie Reid and Evan Shefflin. That's an inter-county half back line right there. And then you've got Paddy Mullen in midfield, and then a forward line. Just this, bear in mind, right? This is a club forward line. They've got Adrian Mullen, Joey Cudahy, TJ Reid, Owen Cody. Like, ridiculous array of hurlers, ridiculous array of ability in that forward line. Colin Fennelly as well, just casually throwing him in. Like, there's world-class players sprinkled all over this team. And if Dunloy managed to beat them, I think I will be stunned if they manage to beat them. It's just my honest opinion. I think, look, they're going to go and they're going to give a very, very good account of themselves for 3/4 of the game, I think. But I think Ballyhale Shamrocks will get over the line eventually by about 5 points, I'm predicting. But Ballyhale Shamrocks have been rattled before. Now, they haven't been beaten by a side that they weren't expected to be beaten by. But you look at, Ballygunner got that goal in the last minute against them last year to clinch the title. St. Ryan's of Offaly, they took them to extra time in the Leinster Championship last year. Kilmacud Crokes should have beaten them arguably in the Leinster final. Like, Crokes really had them on the ropes at one point up until that mistake, which led to Ballyhale Shamrocks' third goal. So you can get the run on Ballyhale for a little bit. And I think if Dunloy get the run on Ballyhale at any stage, they need to maximise their output in that. They need to get 3 goals in that period. They need to do as much damage as possible, because once Ballyhale get the run on them, I fear for them with the forwards that Ballyhale have.
Yeah, Hurling 1, 2, 3, 4 says Shamrocks have 10 players on the Kilkenny panel. Enough said. That's excluding Joey Holden and Colin Fennelly, who have obviously retired from the Kilkenny senior hurlers recently. But yeah, like that shows the players. I mean, from a Dunloy perspective, like it's hard to know what kind of plan you have when you have TJ Reid, because if you focus too much on TJ Reid, you've then got Owen Cody, you've then got Adrian Mullen, you've then got Colin. Like, you've got so much talent all across the pitch. Like, I mean, like, what do you just go toe to toe and hope for it? Like, what kind of plan? Like, obviously, I'm no hurling expert. You aren't either. Like, I mean, we don't know what Dunloy are going to do, but I mean, it's so hard thinking like how you plan for that. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's like, pick your poison, basically. Like, do you want to leave TJ Reid kind of unattended to? Do you want to leave Adrian Mullen unattended to? Like, I think pretty much they have to just do what they've done throughout the club championship, and they have to just go toe to toe and just see what they can get out of the game. I think, look, yeah. Nigel Elliott, Keelan Malloy and Conal Cunning, they have to play the best games that they've ever played in their life to give them any chance of winning this game. Sean Elliott too. But yeah, I feel like there's almost too many weapons in this Ballyhale attack. I think the best thing they can do is, based off the knowledge that they have from their training sessions, try and match them up like for like. So try put someone pacey on Owen Cody. Try put a powerful player on TJ Reid. Like, we saw the job that Robert Downey did on TJ Reid in the All-Ireland semi-final last year between Cork and Kilkenny. So try find someone that almost matches the body type of Robert Downey and put them on TJ Reid. I'd be leaning more that way, because I think if you put your best man marker on one of those forwards, the other ones will just shine. You have to put, I think, like for like as best you can, and just hope that they all deliver the game of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, it is going to be very interesting, no doubt, to keep an eye on it. Like, and I was just thinking there, like, I mean, any guesses when the last time an Antrim club won an All Ireland? There's a bit of a quiz question. Maybe I should have
Quiz
saved
question. Where's Matthew? I'm gonna say it was Lockhill Shamrocks. I know.
There you go. Yeah,
2009.
No, it was a it was a good while ago, actually. Unless I literally have just checked it now. So unless I've missed something, you were close. Actually, you were close. It was 2012 was the year. So
Wow.
you were a couple of years off there. So I mean, that really shows the barometer really of what Dunloy are facing at the same time. And I was thinking there, like with Ballyhale Shamrocks, like there is vulnerabilities there, and even the fact they're coming in as such heavy favourites as a team that everyone's expecting to win. Like there have been a few times this year, and in the past, like you said before, against St. Rynagh's, the Kilmacud Crokes game stands out to me this year in particular, where they were cruising by 16, 17 points, and then all of a sudden it was brought down to a 3-point game with about 10 minutes to go in the second half. So like they have maybe at times, like even against Naas, there were vulnerabilities in there. So when they've come up against sort of teams, we expect them to be comfortably. That hasn't always been the case. So like maybe there might be a bit of complacency, which I think maybe Dunloy can look at as a potential to exploit.
True, but what is the common denominator with those games that we've said they've won anyway? And I think like it's the other thing is right is that look against Ballygunner, they were caught in the last minute, but look how good Ballygunner are. Like when you talk about like Desi Hutchinson, and to have a player like Harry Ruddle to bring off the bench. I didn't even mention all the other players that Ballygunner have, like the Porrick Mahneys, the Mikey Mahneys, and then this year obviously Patrick Fitzgerald that they've just added in. And like they were the team that were able to catch Ballyhale Shamrocks because of the amount of talent that they have. I do think that Ballyhale do have a period where they do nap for a bit. I do think like they definitely did it against St. Rynagh's last year. They definitely did it against Kilmacud Crokes in the Leinster final. They have a tendency to do this in games, but I just don't think Dunloy have the same capability as Ballygunner to punish them when they do, go through their little phase of giving the ball away. Crokes really maximised the amount of scoring they were able to get. So if you were to take something from this game, as best you can, try and devise some sort of a plan or a strategy to just stay in the game for as long as you can, and then hope that Ballyhale drop the ball for a bit. And if you feel like if you feel like they're starting to get sloppy, go for it. Go for it with 20 minutes to go. Just go for it. Like, just throw everything at the wall and just see what happens. But they're really up against it here. They're up against one of the best club sides I've ever seen. As that comment said, like 10 lads on the Kilkenny inter-county panel team, not including Joey Holden or Colin Fennelly. And then on top of that, I don't know all 10 off the very top of my head or who makes up that 10, but there's lads that I think are in this Ballyhale Shamrock side that should start for Kilkenny next year. Like Darren Mullen, for me, at cornerback is one that I think is brilliant. I would start him for Kilkenny in the other corner to Mikey Butler, and then Hugh Lawler at fullback next year. That would be my Kilkenny fullback line. Evan Shefflin would get more game time for me. Like Joey Cuddy, he would get a run in the forwards. Like they've so much talent, and I just think they've too many weapons for Dunloy to neutralise them all. And I think I could see Ballyhale getting this one done by about 5 points.
Yeah, in terms of a prediction, then you're going for 5 points, nothing more.
Well, nothing less than 5 points.
Nothing
I'm
less,
saying.
yeah.
I think they could batter Dunloy here. I think they really could. I think they could beat them by 10 plus. I just feel like, look, when we've said that Ballyhale could be caught, when's the last time that we really said about like a team that was an underdog? But when's the last time that we said a team that was an underdog could catch Ballyhale? It was Clock Balacolla in the Leinster final last year, and what happened? They torn limb from limb. It was like one of the most painful matches I've ever watched. So Ballyhale, while they also have the ability to drop the ball, they also have the ability to come correct. And I think it's a club All-Ireland final. And I think Ballyhale will come correct. I don't think they're going to take any chances that they lose this game. I don't think it's in their nature to get complacent. And I think they're going to treat Dunloy with the respect that they deserve as a team that has got to the final and earned their way to the final. I mean, you do look at it and say, look, Thomas's nearly beat Ballyhale last year and Dunloy beat Thomas's, but every game is different and styles make fights. And I think Ballyhale Shamrocks just are too strong for Dunloy. And yeah, I'm going for them nothing less than 5 points. Realistically, if I was to look at it, I'd say 7 points, 8 points. I'm going for Ballyhale here.
Yeah, left hand on top here actually says Adrian Mullen, huge doubt with hamstring injury. So yeah, like that could be a bit of a miss for Ballyhale, but I think even without him, I'd still fancy Ballyhale to comfortably get the job done. Like I think it will be 10+, to be honest. Like I think like in terms of a score prediction, I've gone for 219 to 13 points. I think that's around the range that Dunloy have hit all year. I think Ballyhale could hit more, to be honest, but yeah, like I do think it's going to be fairly comfortable for them. I don't want to be disrespectful to Dunloy, but I think even there's a lot of club teams in Leinster and even Kilkenny, I think that probably on paper have better players and are probably more likely to beat Ballyhale than Dunloy, to be honest. But look, you can't take away what Dunloy have achieved. Getting to an All-Ireland final is unbelievable, but I just think you can't look past Ballyhale, considering they've been there and done it time and time again in All-Ireland finals as well. And let's not forget, they were within inches of winning that last year.
And they should have. I mean, if like that goal from Harry Ruddle was unbelievable. Like that was like if he puts that an inch to the left, then Ballyhale do win the All-Ireland Club Championship last year. And the fact that they doubled down on that, came back stronger and beat Ballygunner quite comfortably, if you're talking seriously, in the All-Ireland semi-final, shows that they are a level above this year than they were last year. And that's why, yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said. I think that they're going to have a comfortable day here, and I think they're going to win relatively comfortably. I think Dunloy are going to give a very good account of themselves in the first half, but I think in the second half, Ballyhale will be too strong for them and they'll get over the line.
Perfect stuff. Well, anyone who's tuned in, make sure to leave a like button and subscribe, and make sure to leave your comments down below in terms of your predictions for both the club football and the club hurling final. Let us know in the comments down below who you think will be man of the match, the standout players, and ultimately who will take home the prizes. Shay, Miss Brady, make sure to check out his channel as well, Play on GAA. Make sure to go and check that out. I'll be over on there at some point in the week to do a Dublin season preview. So if you want to see me chat about the Dublin footballers or see the both of us chat about the Dublin footballers, make sure to check that out when you get a chance. So yeah, Shay, cheers very much for coming on.
No worries, and thanks for having me on again.